just got to go through it. You've got to do it enough times. It's kind of like whatever you're not good at, you've got to go do it to get better at.
And these questions just kept coming in. And I was like, I started to have an answer in my head and I thought, no, someone else is going to answer this better than me. And then, and then I kind of got put on the spot, and I just had this crazy brain freeze. I mean, I've performed on stage to thousands of people. I'm not particularly that shy or anything like that, but at this moment, my brain just went.
What's enough? You just keep going with it. Okay, well, $20K per month, that wasn't enough because this dude over here is touting $60K a month.
Hi and welcome to the Online Performance Podcast, the podcast that aims to elevate your online earnings. Today, my guest goes by the name of Affiliate Phoenix. She's a blogger, a holistic SEO specialist, and she works on her own projects as well as those of clients. She's spoken at global SEO conferences. She's a self-confessed grey hat turned white hat SEO. I'm really pleased to welcome today Moon Hussain. Welcome to the podcast, Moon.
Hey, Jason, thanks for the awesome intro. I think that's what I'm going to use every time now.
Use it. Just get it on a little snippet and just replay it. That's fine. Absolutely no issue. I think it's going to be a really interesting podcast today because you have been in the industry for well, it seems like forever, and we're gonna get into that today. But we do start each podcast with the same question, so we're going to start with that, and then we're going to delve into your background and what you're getting up to now, and what the future holds, what your goals are, your aims, and all of that. There's loads we're going to dig into. But to start off, what is online success to you?
So that's such a loaded question, right? That's a great question. In my 20s, even in my early 30s, the answer to that was, I want to make something like, let's say $1 million, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, right? Legally. But now, having gone through the pandemic, and maybe it's different for different people, I don't know. For me personally, that has changed to, I want to make $1 million, and $1 million really, honestly, that's just a figure, right? It could be $250,000. That isn't as important as making the money in a way that serves me, right? I want to make money doing things that I enjoy or I'm passionate about or that I believe in. I don't want to do whatever it takes anymore. You know what I mean? And during the pandemic, I'm sure everyone had too much time to think about things, right? And so my priorities have kind of changed. For me, there were a lot of mental health challenges during that time that I'm still kind of reeling from. But yeah, I really want to focus on making money doing things that I love, because life is too. Oh, I forgot to ask you if I can cuss on this podcast.
Yeah, go for it. It's fine. Yeah, we're explicit.
Life's too fucking short, right? Yeah. We've seen a lot of death and disease and just a lot of stuff. And so mine has shifted to that.
I think that's really interesting, because I think you're the first person probably so far that has been kind of open and honest about that, in the fact that, your priorities have changed, and actually you've kind of obviously almost tangibly spend a decent amount of time thinking about that. So I do think it is a loaded question. It is a fascinating question because everyone has a different take on it. So going back then, you just said that your priorities have changed over time. You've been in the SEO industry. So for anyone that doesn't know, SEO, search engine optimization, I'm guessing that's working with clients and working with on your own projects as well?
Yeah, so go ahead.
I was going to say, so you've been in the world of SEO. Yeah, that 15 years is like a lifetime, isn't it? Compared to any other industry, things move so fast. Like with most online businesses, stuff moves so fast. Anything to do with tech. How have you survived for that long? How are you still going? And you just said you've potentially got some mental scars along the way. Maybe that was just purely COVID related, or maybe it's to do with, the fact that you've been in the trenches for so long. How have you survived for so long?
It's both. I've seen high highs and I've been through some low lows. And I would say that, I mean, some of it is related to COVID, right? And some of it is the industry in itself. I feel like, and maybe this isn't true in all circles, but the circle that I was in, like, I feel like there's a lot of, how do I put this? There's a lot of showboating. Like, you have to claim this super high income to be successful. And I'm going to connect the dots with, like, how we used to see pictures of 20, 30-year olds next to Lambos that they probably don't own. You know what I mean? I feel like the industry comes with a lot of pressure. And if you're not careful, you can fall into this trap of the, like, no matter what I've accomplished, at some point just didn't feel like good enough, because I ended up saying, well, he's making 50K a month. Oh, he's making 100K a month. It's almost like people throw these figures out there without understanding the weight behind them. And if you're making that, that's great, right? But once I had the little sneak peek behind the curtain, I'm like, there's no way in hell this person's making 50K a month. You know what I mean? That sounds ridiculous. And as I've gotten older, I've done the scaling and managing a team and hitting those six figures and going bigger. I've had to scale back, right? Like I said, I want to make money doing the things I love, and the $1 million isn't as important anymore. Right? It's having a comfortable lifestyle and making sure that I prioritize my mental health, which helps me with my physical health.
Yeah.
And all of that makes me love the work that I do. Right? And sorry, I forgot 15 years. So 15 years is a long, long time. So I graduated in 2007 with and I'm about to mention my degree. In computer science, I feel like it kind of connects, right? I've always had that bit of nerdiness in me. So my first job, out of sheer panic, I took this job because everybody was landing jobs, and I needed to have something under my belt right away, right? So my first job was with a local hosting company, and at the time I was living on the East Coast. And it was a customer service rep job. And it was so stressful, Jason. Like, customers would call in angry, shouting at you. You're answering phone calls. You have to document it on a ticket. While you're handling this, you also have to answer chat requests. So other clients or customers are coming through on that end. You have to create tickets for them. And it wasn't just that. You also have to resolve a certain amount of tickets per hour, right? I'm all for multitasking, but that was just too much. And because I've had that job, I appreciate people in different customer service jobs, and people need to be kind to those people. They're dealing with a lot of angry customers, right? But anyways, that job was honestly hell. And I only stuck it out for about 4 months. And they tried to keep me there, but I just could not do it, right? And to this day, I hate getting on the phone call for that reason. But my second job was much more adult, right? Like, I got hired at the local school district as a programmer, and it came with health benefits, and it came with 2 weeks vacation, which we think is so amazing in the US, right? And so at first it was cool because it was the complete opposite of my first job. Like, first job was super stressful, but the second job was too laid back. So after the newness wore off, I found myself finishing my work in an hour or two and just sitting there staring at the clock. But as fate would have it, that's the time I used to discover how to make money online, how blogging and niche sites work. And so, I would spend hours consuming that information and then actually applying it, like setting up sites and stuff over the weekend or after work. And I just truly enjoyed doing it. So I don't want to bore you to tears or anything like that.
No, I think it's really interesting to hear that progression from, because I think there's so many people that will be watching and listening to this podcast that will be going through a similar thing. My pathway was pretty much the same. I didn't have two jobs, but I had one pretty serious full-time job and started learning about SEO and just this whole other world online, and you can make money doing this. So it is a lot of us go through that transition of one to the other. So how was that transition for you? Was that a lengthy process from when you were working two jobs, you found out about this kind of world online, you were doing this in your spare time? It sounds like the one job you would kind of sleepwalking through it. Really, it was quite easy for you. It wasn't difficult. So you kind of got all that done. So what was the kind of the time frame then from that running those two jobs and discovering the online to then taking that full time?
So, wow. Okay. I really have to dig back. God, I know I was making part-time income like soon after I started learning about, I would say about 6 months to a year. Okay. It was so much easier back then to make money online and to rank and this and that. But I was making a part-time income within the year. And it probably took 1 to 2 years to like get to the $1,500 to $2,000 mark per month. Now consistency was a little harder, right? Making that every month. But I stayed at my second job for about 2.5 years. Just because there was a disconnect somewhere, right? Like I'm being told that this is a great job, right? Like this is what you want. You want health benefits. You want your vacation time. Hey, it's an easy job. Mm-hmm. But I also found it, and maybe it's my personality, or maybe it's the undiagnosed ADHD. I don't know. But it was torturous. Like I could literally hear the clock ticking, right? And I'm like, how am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Yeah. So when I discovered blogging and niche sites, and I went home and I discovered this whole exciting world, I started experimenting. So within about a year or two, I made significant enough money. And within that time frame, 2.5 years on my second job, during my vacation, like the time that I put in for a vacation, I visited California twice. And I fell in love with San Diego at that time. So at 2.5 years in, I'm like, okay, I need to move, right? Like I need to, it's funny when you're younger, you don't think about bills and the risk, right? Like maybe you've taken some risks in your younger days that maybe you wouldn't have an easy time with right now. Yeah, I don't know, as your responsibilities increase. But I took that leap 2.5 years in, and, I had significant savings as well. I had an income of my own, and then it was a slow start, but I started freelancing for local clients. I got a couple clients here. My first one was a dental client. And soon after that, I got hired by a couple of really big internet marketers. I'm just going to say in the health space, right? Mm-hmm. And I really, these sites were huge. And so it's not like I asked them this specific job, but what I ended up doing for them was focusing on content that was being published, dozens of articles. And the focus really was on on-site SEO. And as I was learning, especially after I moved out here, as I was learning SEO in these Facebook groups, and people were just discussing backlinks like they were just this magic solution, right? And there's nothing wrong with backlinks. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but let me slow down. They're discussing backlinks and how they're just the easiest, that's the thing you need to rank, right? And at the time I was making money, but where there'd be a 1 month where I did really well, another month maybe where I didn't, right? the stability wasn't quite there. So I didn't have a big budget. Like I couldn't really spend money on backlinks. So even on my own sites, I started experimenting with content and on-site SEO and internal linking and all this stuff. And for me, the results were as good or even better in some cases with some of these people that were showing off the results they were getting from backlinks. And at that time, about 8 years ago, even, I feel like these groups have now opened up to content and on-site SEO much more, especially, with my last business, like I had a group which was just focused on that, right? So whereas all these people were talking about backlinks, I started a business focusing on content and on-site SEO, and it's like, is this really going to work? And my previous SEO agency, we hit six figures, and so there's definitely money in that, and there's still money in it. But I think the AI content tools have thrown a lot of, like, it threw a curveball. Like last year, the whole AI, like not just AI content, but SGE and all this stuff happening.
Yeah, it's kind of thrown things into turmoil a little bit, hasn't it? And just thrown up so many, in many ways, opportunities, but then in other ways, threats as well. So for yourself now, you're still working with clients, and but you work on your own projects as well.
Yeah. So the shift has been heavily on, like, I've had the agency days, and I feel like nobody really talks about this part. The money is great, of course, right? Like you can do really well in it, but you can also like burn out, right? So managing dozens of clients, and no matter how much you pad their expectations, when someone's paying you anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a month, they want results within 4 to 6 weeks, know? And as you know, that can happen, but it's never a guarantee, right? And with how Google has progressed, like it takes months to see results in some cases. So there was a burnout from that. And I'm sorry, I kind of forgot your question right there.
So, well, where I was leading with it was that I was asking kind of what your split was and where your focus is in between client and your personal projects, and really kind of where I was leading with that was, have you gone more down the road now of working on your personal projects, and you're nodding there. So let's explore that a little bit more. What I kind of want to understand is, what's your process now when you approach a new project? You've just said there really that you don't focus that much on backlinks. It's mainly content. And obviously content has changed now with the prevalence of AI and so on. So what do you start projects from scratch? Do you work on freshly registered domains? Do you work with age domains? What's your kind of philosophy with niche sites? Because what I want to understand is, or help people to understand, if someone's listening to this and they're considering starting a blog, or they're considering starting a niche site or an affiliate site, or whatever, content, what's your process for that?
Okay. So yeah, I was running an agency, right? And I've been doing this for a long time. My focus has always been on-site SEO and content, like I've said. And so it's easy when clients come to you with established sites, and you can see where the content gaps are, what you can do for them. Maybe it's internal linking that's missing. Maybe, the on-site SEO isn't quite on par. So I'm good at looking at other people's sites and doubling their traffic or whatever the goal might be, right? And it's really funny. I've had a couple clients that I've done this for, and they ended up flipping their sites for really handsome sums, right? And so it's funny because I got into this game with my own sites, playing with my own sites back in the day, and I've had them. But as the agency grew, I couldn't keep up with my own stuff. And honestly, like as the burnout increased, I was like, okay, how long can I do this for, right? Like I need to make money in a way where I'm not as stressed out. And having your own sites is stressful. Don't get me wrong, right? Like Google could wipe out SEO traffic for us at any time. We've seen that a lot in the last couple of years. But honestly, I'd rather deal with my own stresses than clients coming at me, especially with Google updates increasing in nature, right? And so it took me, like, it's been 3 years. I went all in on my own sites. I already had one site that was making like $1,000 per month at the time, or two. I forget the specifics right now. But I started with that, but I tend to work on fresh domains. And about 2 years ago, I kind of went crazy on exact match domains for testing purposes. And so I have quite a few of those domains still with me. They're about 2 years old. So I'm actually starting 2 new sites right now. Like I'm working and heavily editing articles for those 2 sites. But my strategies are really for people who may not have like a big budget or a budget at all, right? You can take simple concepts like zero search volume keywords, or clustering keywords, or creating in-depth topical maps, and show up every day, write your own articles if you have it in you, right? If not, maybe you can hire a writer, or if you want to do AI content, that's up to you. But I do suggest you polishing up that content, right? And producing quality content. My strategies are really for people who want to build something as sustainable as possible that will last, for a few years. So my strategies tend to be more focused on content, on-site SEO, and just white hattish in nature, right? Like I've done the gray hat or black hat stuff, and like it's so much fun, but it's not fun when the updates come and wipe your shit clean, right? So yeah.
And is that what because before this interview, you talked about, we were having some back and forth on Twitter, and you talked about one of the reasons you've had success, you feel, is because you've been able to cut through the noise. So I'm guessing you're referring to all these other tactics, and, we all know there's information everywhere. It's not always great. Facebook groups, Twitter, YouTube, blogs, we can get access to so much information. So how did you overcome that? And what was the impact of it?
So that's a really, really good question. I feel like when I got started in the industry, maybe there wasn't enough information, right? There were specific forums like Warrior Forum and stuff like that. But in 2024, there is so much information that you can literally sit here, consume for hours, and not make any progress at all on what you need to make progress on. So for me personally, having worked on client sites, having access to SEMrush, Ahrefs, all these tools, I can get lost in data for hours, right? And so now that I was beginning with my own sites, it's like, okay, I did this for like 2 or 3 weeks where I was like, oh yeah, I need to work on my sites. And before I know it, 4 hours have passed and I haven't done jack shit. You know what I mean? Because I was just doing competitor analysis.
Been there.
You know what I mean? Like, shit is interesting. Like, you can just get lost in it. And as you know, there's no money in blogging or niche sites unless you're producing content, right? And so for me, I have had to actively, like, I will still catch myself wasting time on X or Facebook. And having done this for 15 years, it was a hard transition because as an SEO expert, you want to keep digging. You want to find the next secret or what's working in the algorithm, maybe even what you can exploit or whatever. Like the human brain and these catchy titles that, people put on their YouTube videos. It's very, very easy. And I still have to, because I'm doing another batch of articles, I still catch myself wandering on X or YouTube, and I have to actively exit. So long story short, I found myself wasting time, and I was like, I can't be doing this unless I want to go back to having dozens of clients, and I don't want that pressure anymore. So it honestly took a good 6 months to discipline myself. I even cut out subscriptions to the bigger tools, because if you're starting from scratch, your site's too new. These tools, I mean, what can they show you? There's nothing to look at. You know what I mean? You just need to do some keyword research and stuff like that. But I feel like especially maybe if you have ADHD or you get lost in shiny objects, you really do need a support system, and you need to like have sticky notes that remind you what your goal is for the day, whether it's 5 articles, 10 articles, whether it's keyword research, whatever it is. In 2024, analysis paralysis and information overload, it really is a thing. It really is a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to delve into your mindset a little bit more on that, and we're gonna come into that. But I just want to touch a bit more on the SEO industry before we do that. So you in your own words described to me that the SEO industry used to be like the Wild West.
Yes.
And you feel that it's maturing a little bit now. But my question to you is the gold rush actually over? And is it not getting more cutthroat as a result of there maybe being more people in the industry?
I mean, yes, there are more people in that industry. There is more awareness of how you can make money online in general, right? And look at Google, the updates. And this is a little bit of a ramble, but steer me in the right direction. But like in the beginning of the pandemic, I can't remember if it was 2019 or 20 specifically, but I saw a Google update that came through. It took affiliate sites or blogs or whatever term we want to use that were ranking for hundreds or thousands of keywords in top spots, making anywhere from $3,000 per month to $15,000 per month. It said, hey, you're doing everything so awesome. I'm going to reward you with these top rankings. And with this update, it threw them all their keywords for each one of these sites out of the top 100.
Yeah.
So I've had this scare. Things are a little more competitive, but I still think there's plenty of opportunity out here. You do have to. I don't know how to say this. You do have to know how to navigate the waters a bit, right? Because right now there's this shiny object, which is AI content tools that you can use. You can press buttons and have these articles. But if success online just comes down to pushing buttons, Google's in trouble too. I really do think that whether it's in blogging, especially YouTube and TikTok, those are just beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. The Google algorithm is going through, we see what it's going through. It's having an identity crisis right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're all waiting for it to really settle down a little more. But I think for those of us who stick to it, or maybe new people coming in who haven't experienced how easy it was, I think there's just so much there. Like, I'm paying my bills with these sites and an affiliate income. I think if you give yourself realistic expectations, if you follow the right people or understand content, how to produce good content, how to do on-site SEO, what kind of keywords to target, I think you can still do it. You can still do it.
So you mentioned YouTube and TikTok there. Obviously, you're heavily involved in blogging yourself. What income streams are you focusing on the most now going into 2024 or in 2024? Is it still the blogging, or are you looking at multiple angles to play with?
So, I've been terrified of creating videos. It's been, I think a lot of people who are into SEO or blogging or niche sites, not all of them, but a good majority of us tend to be introverts or shy about getting on the camera. But I've had this long talk with myself. I think as long as you give yourself permission to be yourself, for some of us, I think YouTube is a huge opportunity for us. I think, I have this phrase, please the humans, please the algorithms. And YouTube really allows you to do that, right? Like, what are we doing here? We're having a conversation, right? Yes, it could help with some SEO. It can have SEO benefits if you link out to Affiliate Phoenix or something like that. But with YouTube, sorry, I forgot the question again.
That's okay. It was just what are you focusing on? So I think
Okay.
you're about to tell me that you are probably going down the YouTube rabbit hole a little bit more.
Yeah. So I've had this long conversation with myself, and I do think that if you can um get in front of the camera and get comfortable, you have tremendous opportunity to connect with other people, right? So that's what I'm aiming to do with Affiliate Phoenix. And that's what I'm also looking to do with my niche sites, right? With my niche sites, though, I think the scare has been pretty big in 2023. Um, when it comes to Google and Google updates. My sites have not been hit, but I've accepted the fact that they could be anytime, right? So I'm going back a bit to explore Facebook groups and pages as well. And I'm on X as well. And I'm experimenting a little bit too. I've built online businesses with Facebook before, right? But I haven't done it for my niche sites. So I'm trying to, like, income streams, right? Like, I'm trying to think of everything as sorry, let me slow down a little bit. I'm trying to go beyond SEO and really master traffic generation and having an ecosystem of generating traffic, right? Once you can learn how to do that, you can sell any fucking thing.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever your business is, you can sell anything once you learn how to drive traffic.
And I think you said it yourself there, that people that really we should be focusing on connecting with other people, because I think that's the one thing that we often forget as content creators, whether that's video or whether it's written word, even if it's AI. I think quite often we forget that the whole point of creating this content is for it to connect with another human being. So that kind of, and you touched on this again there, that I think you said now your philosophy is more towards creating content for people rather than for SEO purposes. So is there an argument to be said that people don't need to know about SEO or focus at least on SEO so much these days, and actually we should put more emphasis? I mean, Google say it all the time, don't they? Right for the user. They don't really tell us what that means. But I think there is something to be said for us, at least in our mindsets and in our approach, in focusing a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I do think we have to, like, I know people say that Google is just an algorithm, and it is, right? It is. But who is on the other end? Who is the algorithm serving, right? Please the humans, please the algorithm. So, your content, we do SEO so we can be in the top and gain visibility and traffic, right? But I think if the algorithm evolves in a healthy way, which we're
hoping so, yeah,
does, right? I think if you know how to write even decent content, okay, I'm gonna get some flack for this. People seem to love AI content, right? And maybe some of them do produce decent enough content or know how to edit it to really make it shine, and you can't tell it's AI content. But, having tested a couple of these tools, if you are just taking that and barely doing anything to it, it is not that good. It is impressive on some level that AI tools can produce content, right? But if you can't connect with the person on the other end, it's going to be a problem for a lot of people if you can't satisfy the user on the other end, right?
Yeah. So I suppose if you're trying to create a long-term asset, then would you do that using AI? Probably not, because for all the reasons that you just said there, it doesn't really satisfy the end user.
It doesn't, and it reads very boring and flat, if I'm being honest,
Yeah, lack of
right?
personality, of course, because it's a machine, and you can prompt engineer and all of that stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, I am more on your side of the fence here, I think, than the AI side for sure.
Right. Like if we're being honest, why are we having this chat, right?
Hmm.
Hopefully to grow both of our businesses and to go beyond the algorithm. We're trying to make an impression on people because
Yeah.
those are the people who are going to spend money, right? Like it's not the algorithm necessarily, but yeah, you do have to satisfy the algorithm. We do have to do SEO right now.
Yeah, and
But
YouTube particularly is geared all towards that, isn't it? And you're obviously learning this that going into YouTube and I imagine TikTok is exactly the same. That it's all about engagement. If people are not engaging with that content, they're not going to push it out. But if they do,
yeah,
then the algorithm is massively in your favor.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
let's change tracks a little bit. I want to get more into you as a kind of individual. Let's move away from we're going to stay loosely within SEO, but more I
Okay.
want to focus a little bit more on yourself. So you said earlier that you've the video thing doesn't necessarily come naturally to you. You've kind of had to have a word with yourself. But another
Yeah.
time, surely, if you class yourself as a bit of an introvert, another time when you have probably gone outside your comfort zone, you've spoken at a massive SEO conference, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've done a couple conferences. I did SEO Rockstars. I want to say it was 2020 and SEO
SEO
Mastery
Mastery
Summit.
Summit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I did that the first year or two. And then I did SEO Rockstars the year after. So it's really funny. I feel like it's harder for me to socialize, especially after the pandemic now. But I love having one-on-one chats.
Yeah.
Once I get comfortable, it's cool. For those uh, presentations or talks or whatever, it's really funny. I was nervous, right? I did have anxiety about them, but I prepared for them like a month and a half ahead of time. I can be really anal with practicing, but it does help calm the mind for me anyway, right? The more prepared I am.
Yeah.
So I made my slides and I would sit here and I would go through it every day. And I think with myself, maybe you've noticed it, I tend to ramble a little bit, right? I'm not the most polished speaker, but I needed to learn no matter how I say it, how I can bring it all back to the original point, right? Like you don't want to make mistakes and get stuck in them, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to make mistakes. You just need to conquer this part that might be talking too loud and telling you messed up, right? That makes you kind of freeze.
Yeah.
But no, those were honestly a lot of fun and it's really funny because once I did those presentations, I got some really cool clients that have returned to me in the last couple of years as well, right? Like it's on and off. Like I work with them still years down the road. But those were a lot of fun. I think my presentations were on internal linking and just, I don't know, it was a lot of fun, I have to say.
So if you're like me, you probably do the whole internal monologue, and you
Oh my
probably
God.
your own biggest critic and all that sort of stuff. I think
Yes.
you mentioned to me that you do still, even though you've done these amazing events, and you've obviously done a great job at them, by the way, with the feedback that you've had and then bringing clients in, but you still
Yeah.
suffer from the imposter syndrome a little bit. So why is that? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? And I definitely have that. So I've not really talked about this. I did a conference last year at Affiliate Gathering,
Yeah.
and I had the exact opposite experience to you in the sense that mine was a Q&A panel. So I
Oh,
couldn't prepare at all.
oh my God.
And
Those are
and
terrifying
and it
for
was
me
and
to
it was with
say.
I think there were 4 or 5 of us on the stage, and
Wow.
I was just and it wasn't sort of led in any way, so it was just anyone could answer the question, and these questions just kept coming in, and I was like, I started to have an answer in my head, and I thought, no, someone else is going to answer this better than me, and then.
Yep.
And then I kind of got put on the spot, and I just had this crazy brain freeze. I mean, I've performed on stage to thousands of people. I'm not particularly that shy or anything like that, but at this moment, my brain just went.
Really?
And
Wow.
it was kind of horrifying. And then I just kind of composed myself. I was like, right, yeah, deal with it, and it's fine. But obviously after that, you kind of, your internal monologue is just absolutely tearing you to shreds.
Oh my God.
And I learned. So one of the things I learned from that was just going fully prepared. I mean, one of the things that didn't help me was that there were all these fringe events the night before, these social events,
Yeah.
and there were free bars, and I'd drunk too much alcohol. So the next day I was not in a good state. I'd had lack of sleep. I was hungover
Yeah.
horrifically. So that obviously didn't help. So from what I've learned from that experience is preparation, in all aspects. Prepare the content, but prepare your mind and body as well. Definitely.
Listen,
if you're going to put yourself in that situation. But so going back to you suffer with it as well. So how do you overcome it?
I mean, honestly, it's going to sound tacky, but you've just got to go through it. You've got to do it enough times. It's kind of like whatever you're not good at, you've got to go do it to get better at, right?
Yeah.
But it's not cool that you suffered from brain freeze, right? But it's relatable. And it's cool in the sense that, like, we all make assumptions, right? So to me, having watched your interviews, you're a natural speaker. I would never imagine that you froze over questions, but honestly, with Q&As, I still shit bricks. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I also learned after doing it that I think I saw Matt Diggity do a Q&A in Affiliate World Asia, and I learned that his was fully pre-scripted.
So, there you go.
I mean, it just goes to show, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, it was pretty scary. But I also think, like, you think, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? The worst thing that could possibly happen, say I had that brain freeze, it lasted another 20 seconds. I then walk off the stage. Even if that happened, even if I passed out and collapsed, whatever, even if that happens, what's the worst that's going to happen after that?
Exactly.
I just don't go to that event again or come online and talk about it. Like, that's it. It's not the end of the world, is it? But we beat ourselves up so much.
It's honestly the pressure we put on ourselves, right?
100%.
And I've definitely put it on myself where I didn't feel like I was good enough, or, like saying I don't know to a question just felt like, and this is terrible. It goes back to childhood stuff sometimes too. Like, you feel dumb for saying I don't know, and all these other people might have. But really, how are we supposed to know every fucking thing?
Oh yeah, God, 100%. The thing was, it wasn't even a difficult question. It was something like, tell me about your portfolio, or something like that. It was a really simple question. It wasn't something I didn't know. It was just this moment just became overwhelming for whatever reason. Like, I fully went into it thinking, if I get asked a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll just be honest and say I don't know, because there is no shame in that. 100%. Like, you can't possibly know everything.
You can't.
But yeah, it's just a bizarre thing. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the more you do something like that, the better you're going to become at it. So, like, if you think that you're not a particularly great public speaker, you're only going to improve, aren't you, by getting out there and doing it? And
it's also realizing that everyone else that you admire or look up to, or you've seen doing it well, they've done it extremely well, or it's pre-scripted, like you said.
Yeah, or they've gone, but I suppose, they've done it a lot of times. You're seeing the polished version. You're not seeing the first 30 times that they got up and spoke to a small room of people. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? So that we don't necessarily see the hard work. We just see that finished product, and I think you're absolutely right. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be that. And it's us that puts that pressure there a lot of the time.
It is. And with YouTube videos especially, like, I'm not an editor, right? And you have to put money into hiring the right editors and this and that. But, like, also I say and all these other things. I can have 15 thoughts at once. But, like, okay, so what? So what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, okay, so we talked a bit about my personal failure there last year when that happened.
Hey, I love it. It's not a failure, though. Let's not paint it as a failure. Well,
I think it's okay, and I think it's all right to deem it a failure, because I think as long as we take something from it and learn
Sure.
from it. Like, I think I probably went into it with an arrogance that I could just
Okay.
turn up, go out, get sloshed the night before, and then just rock up on stage and do whatever. Like,
I've
and
never
then
understood how people did that.
no, and I will, and like I would 100%, I would never do that again.
Yeah.
And so I've learned from it. Yeah, I
Good.
should have learned that at a much younger age, but
It
I've learned it
happens,
in my
man.
40s, so that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So let's talk about failure a little bit more then for you personally, and obviously you feel free to share whatever you're comfortable sharing. Have you had a particular failure in your career that you think you've learned from, or that was kind of a pivotal moment?
Honestly, like that's a really good question, right? And I don't want to sit here and say I've never had any failures. I've
Yeah.
had plenty of them, but for me, I think it's not so much anything in the SEO space or blogging or niche sites. It's really mentally beating myself up over things that I shouldn't have. And if I say things out loud, I'm like, oh, I did some pretty cool things. You know what I mean? For me, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, really some heavy lessons came mentally, right? So with this, I launched Affiliate Phoenix a little over a year ago, right? And I should have promoted it right from the start. But I got stuck in this thing where my niche sites aren't big enough. And I haven't done this. What am I going to go on and talk about? When in reality, I've been in the industry for 15 years. I've helped clients, double their revenue. I've helped them grow their traffic. I've done this for so fucking long, and for me, I don't know. I can't point at a particular failure. I think more so I just didn't give myself the credit that I needed to give myself, and I think I put my mental health aside. I think, and I put it aside, thinking that I could still perform at the same level in my business, on my sites, even social activities or physically when that's not true. This, if you don't take care of this, everything else is going to suffer.
Yeah. I
Right.
think you're
So I think,
absolutely right. And I think that's something that, particularly in those transitional years where you're going from employment to trying to do this full time, that is so difficult to do. I definitely resonate with what you said there because I went through that. And I think there's probably a period, only a maximum period of time you can sustain that before you do burn out
oh, yeah,
completely. And then there's no coming back from that. And I think
absolutely.
you're right. Like, we probably put that pressure on ourselves all the time. Even now, I know I do.
Yeah.
Like doing these interviews, I love doing these interviews, but of course
Yeah.
they come with a cost. That is, I've got to prep for this interview. We've got the physical time of doing it. We've then got to get it edited and promote it, and so there's a lot of cost that comes with that,
Yes.
and then the kind of the mental thing of thinking about it, and the fact that you know that you've got that coming today, and that's just one thing, and then you've got probably a million other things that you're doing that with as well, and I'm sure
Oh
that's
my
the
God.
case for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and with client stuff as well, like you said, you carry all those expectations with you.
Yeah. And, there was a big algorithmic shift in 2019 or 20, the one I spoke of. And like, I don't know, my anxiety really, like, I do have an anxiety disorder, right? Like, I learned that I thought this is how people just operated, right? But yeah, no, this is not how people operate. It's just gotten worse, especially through the pandemic. But going back to that, like, when you're working on people's sites, they've trusted you to help them grow, right? And even though the Google updates aren't my fault, right? There's an anxiety that can come with it. And if you're not careful with it, like I started carrying it all the time. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I started waking up in the middle of the night with sheer anxiety, right?
Yeah.
How, like, what am I going to do? What are we, what's going on with it? Like, you just really need to take care of your mental health. And I don't think that people really talk about it in our space that much.
Yeah. Are there any
But
particular strategies that you use now that you do actively try and take more care?
so I learned that I really internalize my feelings, and that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
I've had like GI issues that are, I've gone through testing over the last year. My gallbladder is good. I thought I had a gallbladder issue, right? Because my younger sister, she really did have a gallbladder issue. She had to have it taken out at a young age. So I'm like, oh my God. And for a while after eating, 2, 3 hours later, I would get physically sick, right? So what I found out was I had ulcers, but nothing else crazy, right? And talking to my GI and, getting her perspective, she's like, there's nothing wrong with you physically. But when you have undiagnosed GI issues, it's usually stress or
Yeah.
anxiety or something along those lines. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I just never gave my mental health the credit it deserved. Sorry, I again forgot
Yeah.
to
So are there specific things that you try and do now that,
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
help with that?
Yeah, so I've began therapy. Like, you if you're the type of person who stays in your head,
Yeah.
you really do need to talk it out with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And therapy is a safe space. It's supposed to be a safe space where you can say whatever you want without judgment. And maybe in your younger years you got away with things, with stuffing your feelings inside, but at some
It's gonna
point
come.
they take a toll on your body
Yeah.
too. So it's really important. So I've began therapy in the last few months, and I'm learning how to journal. I have a hard time with it, but if I can do it 2, 3 times a week for now, that's successful for me. It does seem to help. You know what
Yeah.
I
No,
mean?
I think I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think in our space, although even if you're active on social, it can be a very lonely industry to work in.
It
And
is.
particularly if you are working on your own as an entrepreneur, as a blogger, and it's just you. Like I've just said to
Mhm.
you, I've built this place here at the top end of my garden. So I'm now even more segregated physically from the rest of my
Yes.
family and house. But
Yeah.
and that's great. Like it's a lovely space to work in and be in, but it's also very, very lonely because, I could spend all day and all night here if I wanted to. And also we all do this thing, don't we, of comparing ourselves to others. So I think you mentioned earlier, like we see these figures being thrown around, and I'm as guilty as anyone of doing that. Like
Mhm.
I've kind of gone full circle now to the point where I've decided I'm not throwing out figures anymore. Although it's still really, really difficult not to do, because I think you said earlier as well, we almost expect to validate ourselves through our earnings, which isn't really what it's all about. But we do,
Mhm.
I think we by doing that, yeah, we kind of validate ourselves, and it's us
Yeah.
doing that. And then yes, people probably look at it and go, oh yeah, he's doing well or she's doing well because she's making that. But then it just becomes this like one-upmanship thing all the time. And okay, I'm making 20K a month, but that's not good because
Yeah.
someone else is making 150K a month, which is just insane.
Right.
So and then if you're, and the other thing is, and what no one talks about, if you're making 100K a month and you're basing your self-worth on that 100K a month, and then
Ooh.
suddenly a Google update comes and you're making 5K a month or even 20K a
Mhm.
month, but you're beating yourself up because you've got no value anymore. You don't value yourself because you've gone from
Right.
100K to 20K, which is
Mhm.
insane because you're not necessarily in full control of that. So there's so many issues, I think, in this space that are just insane, and to do that all on your own and be in your own head and not talk about it is madness, isn't it, really?
Honestly, you nailed it right there, because not only is it lonely work, right? And then you have you no matter what, like oh my God, going on YouTube, it's part of marketing, and I understand that. I've done it too, right? But I think no matter, like, if you give in to that, like you said, what's enough? You just keep going with it. Okay, well, 20K per month, that wasn't enough because this dude over here is touting 60K a month, and now I'm not going to look big enough. It's a dangerous road to go down, and I won't share figures, right?
Yeah,
I've
no, I
always
appreciate that.
Yeah, I've always had a problem with it, but it seemed like other people were doing it and I felt like I had to do it, but I haven't done it so far and I don't think I will do it. And
Yeah.
also I think it brings sometimes it can bring the wrong type of attention too.
Yeah.
And I don't want that, right? Like I can give big hints with I do share like uh images from Google Search Console and stuff like that
Yeah.
to give you an idea of how much traffic I'm getting and
Yeah.
you can make your call. But, somebody making 1K, 2K, 3K per month with the freedom that we have, like you can't put a number on it. I was sick for 2 weeks with COVID, right? Like we delayed the interview. I don't have to call in. Like
Yeah.
you can't get 2 weeks off for being sick.
Yeah.
You need doctor's notes and 100 other things, and then you have to worry about calling your boss, and especially with like, I feel like there's a mental health crisis going on as well after the pandemic, and like people just need some time off, and like we're not built like robots, and people have come to this realization that if they can get their work done in 3 hours versus sitting in an office for 8 hours, right? Like
100%. 100%.
why are we doing these outdated things?
Absolutely. I think it's been a really fascinating chat today, Moon. I think you've been really open and honest. I feel like I've been quite open and honest as well. I think it's been the conversation kind of went a slightly different way to where I thought it was going to go, but I think that's really good. And I think hopefully, even if people have listened to that and they're not at that stage yet, hopefully people can just consider it. Particularly the mental health aspect of it, because I think it's so important. I want to kind of finish off on a question then just related to you professionally. What are your goals now going forwards? And you've touched on it already, but first of all, do you set yourself kind of specific goals? And if you do, what is your main kind of goal now going forwards?
Right. So I kind of struggle with gold in the sense that like I don't want to fall into the trap of like I'm gonna hit $1 million in the next 2 years or whatever, right? So my goals are more objective based. Like I'm going to promote the living shit out of Affiliate Phoenix.
Yeah.
I'm going to do 1 to 2 interviews a month this year. So hopefully you see me around a lot more. And my goals are loosely like I'm doing well with my niche sites. I teach people how to build them, right? So my goals are kind of loose and really I went through such a dark period in the last couple of years that really my goal is to wake up every day, go for a walk, have coffee, get this straight so I can sit down and do the work I want. Of course, like anybody else here, I want to hit that 250,000 doing the shit that I love in the next 2 years, right? Once I can hit that, I think I can do anything, right? I've hit these numbers before, but I did them in a very stressed out way.
Yeah.
And if I can reduce my stress, if I can just do it with my niche sites and a few clients, I'm happy, right? Everything else is a fucking bonus. And yeah,
I love that. I think you'll probably have so much more success by doing that first bit and getting this right and the walks and all that sort of stuff. I think that'll have a positive knock-on effect with the other stuff, and maybe not to put too much pressure on yourself, like we all do.
And it's hard not to.
Of course it is. We live in a world of comparison, don't we? We see all the time. You can't, unless you literally switch off social media all the time, but then you're isolating yourself further. So. Right. Yeah, it's finding that balance, and it is a really difficult thing to do. So you've talked about Affiliate Phoenix a lot today. Definitely, guys, people want to go and check out Affiliate Phoenix. We'll put all the links in the show notes and in the description below. Where are people going to find you, Moon?
So you can go to affiliatephoenix.com/freebie, FREEBIE. That's going to, if you subscribe to that, you're going to get like my 0 search volume keyword guide. And I send out a newsletter. I'm trying to be steady with it every Friday, consistent with it. So you'll be subscribed to me, but you can also find me on X, affiliate PHNX. and the Facebook group too, Affiliate Phoenix. You can find me there as well.
Brilliant. Well, all of that will be linked in the show notes and the description. So, Moon, thank you again for coming on. We finally managed to get this interview recorded after all of the rescheduling, which was partly my fault, partly you, but we got there in the end. And I've really enjoyed the chat. So thank you so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jason.